My hat! Hello and welcome to Telecomando RC. So this is actually very special. I actually just rigged this up, this inside of the house. I actually used some duct tape. Don't show it on the camera though, in case my wife watches. Don't tell my wife I duct tape boards to her wall. But here we have two TRX-4s. Now this one started its life as a TRX-4 Sport. This one over here started its life as a TRX Bronco. Now it has a Jeep body. The only reason why it has the Jeep body is the Bronco body, to be honest, is too nice to bash. This one over here has just the front body. And in this video, I'm really going to show you more of weight setups. So this one here, this is my buddy Rod's TRX-4. You can follow him at Rod's Reels RCs. As you can see, he's got a lot more things than I have as far as brass and just things that add weight. So he has a brass weight right here in front. That's his servo for his winch. Now, one of the things he is planning on replacing this with a waterproof servo. This one is not, and it's acting a little finicky. He loves to go into mud and water. But you can see all the brass components here on the shocks, front and rear. You see everything that he's replacing brass. He's got some here in the rear. Right here, the diff cover, the steering arms in there. Those are brass. And then down here in the rear, he also has the brass in the hubs. Not in the front though, only in the rear, as well as a few other items in the rear. And this is really for his setup. So with crawlers, weight is important, but it's not just weight, it's the distribution of weight, and it is all going to depend on what you're going to be using the vehicle for. Now, he is running a Castle system with their slate motor. That's his setup. And one of the things that you will notice too is that the battery tray, he does not have the stock battery tray. He has the low center of gravity battery tray that uses Velcro for his battery. And he's running a shorty pack on this little rig. So we're gonna go ahead and put the body back on. And then we're gonna open up the other one. And we're gonna show you the setup of the other one. So as I mentioned, the one with the Jeep body right now, this red one, this one started its life as a Ford Bronco. And I actually own this one right over here. And I do have the Bronco body and bumpers. I just remove them when I'm going out and about. And then I put them back on just whenever I want it's clean and I want to display it. So this one over here, one of the differences that it has is this one has locking front and rear diffs versus this one over here, they're locked 100% of the time. Now this one over here, I'm running an Axe system by Hobby Wing. You know, it's really just preference. My buddy really loves his Castle system. I do my Hobby Wing system, so it really depends. Now, I purposely put a larger battery here. I have the factory tray. Later on, I'm going to use some smaller batteries just to show you the difference. But for me, the only brass that I have is the rear diff cover. I'm going to explain why, as well as all four hubs. Now, really quick, with these hubs, since I have all the weight, there's two additional weights that screw onto these main weights. You are going to have to use some shims so that the wheels do not rub on the hubs and they can spin freely. So that's something that I found. But I have the maximum amount of weight in here that I can on all four, and then just a brass plate in the rear diff cover. So the rear diff cover is the only brass that I have. And we each have our reasons for our weight distribution depending on what we like. To be honest, I don't change my setup at all. And it has to do with the location of the center of mass, which is what I'm going to be talking about. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the trucks with the rear wheels, and as soon as they go on this 2x4, the second 2x4, I'm going to have to remove this piece of wood right here. But anyway, I'll start them off right here. And again, this has to do with weight, not the system. This one tends to want to roll back. Okay, well, okay, so that's a difference in just the motors and the system. But let's go ahead and try the red one first. So I'm going to keep calling it Bronco even though it has a Jeep body. But if I roll it forward, you're going to notice it keeps rolling. Now, actually, it's about to touch on the bottom, but let's keep going. All right, so right there, it's on the 2x4. So I can get rid of this. And by get rid of this, I just realized I can't because I'm going to hit a wall. All right, hand to God. There we go. We know it can crawl up there. All right. Oh boy, I have to take the other one off too. I need to be quieter. I don't want to wake up my wife. Here we go. All right. Yeah, don't tell her I'm doing this inside of the house. For those of you that don't know, she's the one filming. So she's got to make sure not to tell herself. All right, so here we go. So, anyway, see how it stood up? All right. There we go. All right, so that's about as far up as it's going to go. Now, if I keep driving in real circumstance, you're never going to drive this steep. Your truck is just not going to make it up. This is actually more important coming downhill. But now, I'm just going to back it up. All right. And I'm going to reverse it. So I'm going to do the same thing. It holds. And I'm just going to crawl this. Actually, don't know if this is going to work. Alright, if I move this one over here. There we go. Alright, let's try it again. Alright, here we go. So this is going to back up, and I'm just going to go slowly until it rolls over, or about to roll over. Oh, actually that did pretty well. There we go, rolled over. So let's bring it back to where it's stable. All right, I'm not sure if we can get sort of a, we can get a side shot of the angles. Now this board was duct taped so that I can get a square, so it's 90 degrees. All right, perfect. So right there, see I can go forward, slowly, and then I can go back. There we go. If I go further, I know it's going to tip over. But anyway, the point is just going slow. Slow as fast as rock crawling. Anyway, there we go. So now let's do this other one. So I'm going to place it up here again. Oh, a little quicker. Let's go back. Right, well, oh boy. You know what? I'm just going to place it by hand. It'll be a lot easier. And I can actually get rid of this here. All right. So it actually sits pretty well. Now, let's say we were going the other way. It will sit pretty well too, as you can see. Well, I guess now it's on the bar, so let's move it forward. All right, that's about where it wants to be. So if you look at that angle versus this one, they're very, very similar. But if you look closely, the blue one is actually slightly forward, which means that the red one can actually balance itself at a shorter angle versus the wall. So there's a shorter distance between the wall and the fulcrum here. Fulcrum right where the wheel spins versus this one over here. And that has to do with the weight. And to be honest, I did it on purpose. I purposely put the larger battery on this one, which will give it a higher center of mass, just for this show. This truck over here is great. It's great for going uphill. If it goes uphill very, very well. Part of the reason why is when it's in this position here, there's a lot of weight up front. So if you saw that big, massive weight that was inside, I'll actually show you right now again. So what you have to do is you have to draw lines. So if you were to put this truck up at an angle, and I'm going to angle it this way just to make it easier on the camera, you have to find the center of mass. So wherever the center of mass is, has to be, if you're going up, it has to be in front of the fulcrum here. As soon as the center of mass, wherever it is on the truck, let's say it's here, if it's here, as soon as it goes beyond a perpendicular line where the fulcrum and the ground are, it's going to tip over. So if the center of mass of this truck is somewhere up here, it would tip over because it's beyond this line. That's the reason why. So this is why with crawlers, people always talk about weight and center of mass. So if I take this square and I place this square here, the center of mass of the vehicle cannot pass this line. As soon as it comes close to this line, it's going to start tumbling. Once it gets to this line, as soon as it passes this line, it's just going to flip over. So one of the things that you notice about this rig is it has a lot of weight in front of that fulcrum. So all of this weight in front is going to want to tip it over. Now it does have a lot of weight, actually this is in the rear. So it has a lot of weight in the rear, and it's going to want to make it tip over. But it also has a lot of weight up front, which is going to keep it down. So you have to find a balance, and the reason why this balance is important is these weights are just counteracting each other. They're canceling each other out to a point. But you're making your rig heavier, that could stress the motor, make it slow, or if it's really loose dirt, just make it more difficult for you to grip. Now, my buddy's an excellent driver, so I don't think it matters what rig I give him. He's probably gonna beat me, but you know, that's all right. But anyway, so that's something that you have to consider. If you're going the other way, again, the fulcrum is now this one, the one that you're worried about, because that's the one that you're gonna tip over. So if you look at the mass, there's a lot of weight back here. All of this mass is behind that fulcrum, so that is good. But now you have a lot of mass up front. Look at the servo, look at that weight there, the shocks. I mean, all of that mass is beyond this fulcrum. That's gonna wanna make your vehicle tip over. Now, luckily in this setup, this is brass, and this adds quite a bit of weight, and this is gonna be behind this fulcrum, and that's gonna help it out. So we're gonna put the body back on this one, and then we're gonna show you on the red one. The other thing that also helps keep in mind when you're crawling is how smooth you are with the trigger. You want to be very, very smooth. I cannot really drive his truck, but he does wonders with it. I wish I was as good with his truck, half as good as he is. For me, I have my own, and I'm very happy with this one. So with this one, even with that large battery, one of the things to notice is all of the mass that I added, the weights, is mainly in the hubs and then back here. And the reason why I did that is because the mass here is circular, so this is going to cancel out that mass. It doesn't matter because that mass is around the fulcrum and it's evenly distributed. So if I'm coming downhill, all of the mass that I added is in the rear hubs and back here in the differential. So as I'm crawling down, this is going to be pulling the truck behind the fulcrum, which is where I want it, right? Because I'm going forward at an angle this way. So this is pulling here, right? It's pulling behind the fulcrum. That's what's keeping it from tipping over. As soon as most of the mass, center of mass again, goes over the fulcrum, wherever that center is, it's going to want to tip over. So this, by putting more mass here, I'm moving the center of gravity further back so I can keep it behind the fulcrum. Now, if I'm crawling up, yes, I do have some weight back here on the brass, but that doesn't matter as much because I'm pulling forward and I have all the weight here in the hubs to keep my front end forward. And this is now the fulcrum that I'm concerned about. So all of the weight that I added over here is in front of this fulcrum now, because I'm going forward, I want it in front. So that is one of those things. Now we're actually going to do a little demo outside on a rock. All right, so it is a little moist, so the tires might slip, but we're about to try to put this crawler up, and it generally does it, but like I mentioned, the tires are a little moist because the grass is moist. But you can see how, oh, okay. Yeah, not my truck. My buddy's not here. Anyway, see, there we go. Oh. Okay, it is moist. Usually they do crawl up, but the main point is it's not toppling over like it would if you did not have weight. So if you buy a crawler, such as a TRX-4, do not be discouraged if out of the box it keeps flipping over. Just add weights. Alright, hand to God. Here we go. So now I'm going to put it on top, and look, it's not going to tumble over if I can go nice and slow. And there it's going on its own. Alright, like I said, it's moist. But I'm just gonna go fast. I may flip it over, but that's because I'm hitting the rock too fast. All right, anyway, let's go back down. It. So really it's all about lowering your center of gravity, and there's different ways of doing it. So now we're going to take these back inside. Actually, we have another rock. Let's just go ahead and show you that surface. Let's see, we flip. So it's pretty steep. I'm probably just gonna gut it. There we go. Perfect. All right, let's get the... So that was one of the differences. You saw how it came and then it almost went forward. That has to do with the weight distribution. So it's all that weight in front that wants to make the truck topple over. Luckily, he added all this weight back here, which kind of neutralizes some of that weight. So do you really need that much weight? I don't know, maybe. There'll be another day where both of us will be running, and then we'll see if they make a difference. Like I said, he's a much better driver than I am. So if he has a better rig, I wouldn't know. If he has a worse rig, I wouldn't know either. No, I'm kidding. He has a very good rig. But the main point is to, when you add weight, try to think of where it's going and why. All right, so we're back indoors. And here, I took this piece of wood here, particle board, and I just put a towel because this towel provides enough friction for the tires to grip and the truck to stay. And I placed the board at just the angle where the truck is balancing. It wants to topple over, but it's not toppling over, as you can see right there. So I'm gonna measure the angle now here. All right. And we are looking at, that looks about, let's see, 50, let's see, that's 45, so that'd be 50, 55. So it looks about 55 degrees. So this truck right now is holding an incline, an angle of 55 degrees. So that's the angle it's currently holding. And like I said, it has to do with the weight. So if you look at the weight distribution, remember there's the rear differential cover is brass, and that's back around here. So if you were to draw a straight line from it, so if you just draw a straight line from it down to the ground, it's perpendicular to the ground, it's behind the fulcrum. That mass is behind the fulcrum. All the mass in the wheels are also behind this fulcrum. That's the one that matters when we're going downhill, it's this one. And when we're going uphill, well, it'd be whichever one is on the bottom, that's the one. So the weights over here, because they're round, they don't matter. They cancel each other out because the mass in front cancels the mass in rear, right? So front and rear, they cancel each other out, top and bottom. So these cancel each other out. So the ones that are gonna matter is this. Now I did replace the battery and I put a small, little tiny battery that I actually took out of my TRX. Those run those are very, very good batteries. Now this one over here, I'm gonna try to place in. Notice that the mass also helps it stay, but it makes it very, very heavy. The motor's actually struggling to keep it. Up. Actually, this one wants to tumble. So notice how this one actually wants to roll. And the reason why it wants to roll, sorry Rod, I have a better truck. This is on YouTube, everybody's gonna see that I have a better truck. You're still a better driver, bud, but my truck's still better. So the reason why it wants to tumble is because of all this weight in front. All of this mass is in front of the fulcrum. So all of this is over here, so this is actually pulling down on the truck. And I mean, I'm helping it out. Let's see, the motor is struggling. Now the other thing too is, because it does want to roll backwards, the motor's kind of pulling the truck over here. As the tires roll that way, the truck's rolling over here. So that's the other issue too, that now your motor is struggling to keep the truck up, so you're having to apply more drag, more brake. Your truck's gonna want to flip over itself. Whereas you can see the red one's just kind of stuck there, it's not going anywhere. It doesn't care. But let's see, here's forward. It's still struggling, it's too heavy. So that's something to consider. Now there is a time and a place for every application. See there, it's right on, oh. So forward, it's probably because I don't have the brass. I should probably put that brass plate, but there, I'm gonna decrease the angle, so I'm gonna pull this board. And I mean, I'm not being that gentle, and it's there. Okay, perfect. So let's see, going forward, because I don't have that brass plate, that's what I think. Let's see, how did this change? So I'm gonna open it up and just drive it in there. All right, we are at, actually, it's probably just a degree or a fraction of degree. It's almost at, it's just above the 55 mark. Not sure if you can see. So there isn't much difference. So that being said, the red one is about 55. Well, I'm gonna place this one up here, and I'm just gonna pull on the board until, let me just, all right, a little more. All right. Nope. That's good enough, I think. So let's go ahead and measure the angle. So putting it in there. All right, let's see. And we are, whoops, we're at just above 50 degrees. So there's about a 5-degree difference between the two trucks where they can hold. And again, they're both TRX-4. That one was originally a Bronco, so it has the servos, extra servos for locking the diffs. This one here, I mean, it doesn't have this part of the body, so that's extra mass that it does not have up here versus this one. This one has that extra mass over here. Yeah, it's too heavy. It's not going to hold on the carpet. All right, now, this is a shorty pack. So you might be saying, well, it's not fair because you have a teeny tiny battery and he's running a shorty pack. All right, fair enough. He does have a low CG battery tray, but let me just put a shorty pack in the red one. So here we go, shorty pack in the red one. Now it does matter if you place it here or back here. I'm gonna place it as far back as I can. Actually, I'm gonna put this piece of foam back here to help me keep the battery there. I love these little foams. They come with your Traxxas. Keep them. All right, there we go. Now we're gonna connect this. And we're ready to roll. Well, hopefully not roll over. Although you are gonna roll over. The other thing too is, I'll be honest right now, I've just been talking about weight. He does have better tires than I do. I have the stock tires, which are actually really good. The stock tires on the Broncos are very good tires. But tires will many times make or break your rig. So that being said, let's put this guy up there. All right, it is holding. I'm gonna push the board. All right, so now mine can't hold. So you see how weight makes a difference. See, now mine's not holding, mine's struggling. But it's not toppling over, it doesn't want to topple over. Well, maybe it does. Here, let's start up here. doesn't want to topple over, but it won't hold because now it's too heavy for that angle. I'm curious what the angle is. All right, it's the original angle. So with the smaller battery, it was able to hold at 55 degrees. Now with that larger battery, it's not able to hold 55. Now, let me flip it around. It's too heavy. Let's go ahead and put it in reverse. See, it just wants to actually topple now. All right, so we're gonna have to reduce this. All right, topple over, let's move it. I need better tires. Oh, well, whatever, that's close enough, it's holding. Rod, I'm calling that good. You're not here, so I'm the one that makes the rules. That's the way it works. All right, so we've got that. And let's look at the angle. So the angle is it's about 52, 53 degrees. So it's still held better than the blue one. Now, the blue vehicle is a great vehicle, don't get me wrong. The weight does wonders compared to something with no weight. The only thing is that you can get your rig to be too heavy to hold, and then you end up finding to apply either more brake or more reverse or more throttle just to keep it in place, which will cause you to rotate. So if you're having to go in reverse, this is going to want to come this way. So keep in mind that if the tire's spinning this way, in relationship to the tire, so from the tire's perspective, the tire isn't moving, the whole truck is moving about the tire, right? So if you think of this rolling back, it would be the same thing as the tire being fixed and this rolling forward. If you're going this way, you're rolling that way, so not much of an issue. Usually what's going to happen, right, because your truck wants to roll this way, you'll be stable. It's just going to start bouncing in the grip, and that's what's going to send you over. But where you put the mass matters. So this is very heavy up here on the front, in front of the fulcrum. It's going to want to flip over, even though there's a lot of weight back here. But because there's so much weight, and some of this weight is actually just counterbalancing the other additional weight, you need to work your motor more. And if you're putting more work on your motor, or you're making your motor work more, your motor is applying more torque to the drivetrain, which ultimately translates to the wheels. So if the wheels have to apply more torque, going in reverse, things gonna topple over. That is the problem with adding weight. So if you don't add any weight to these rigs, you're gonna be rolling over day and night. So if this was completely stock, it would have never have held. If that was completely stock, they would have just been flipping all the time. I mean, they might have been able to do 35 degrees, maybe. Maybe 40. I have to find one that's fully stock and then do this test again. But because of the weight, oh, it's holding. Oh, I think that was where it held, yeah. So because of the weight in front of the fulcrum, it stays in place. And because it's not too heavy, the tires are able to grip. Because you have to keep in mind that the coefficient of friction between the surface and the tires has to be greater than the force of gravity. So the coefficient of friction times the force of friction has to do with gravity. So this has to be stronger than the force of gravity pulling you down. So that's the other thing that also affects both of these here on this plane. If I were to take this towel off, they would never grip on the surface. That's why I had to put the towel. But anyway, I know this was long-winded, but I hope this helps those of you that just bought a TRX-4 or just bought any other crawler and you're planning on adding weight. Keep in mind that look at your rig. If you already have the vehicle, put your rig in different angles and try to see where you want that weight, where that weight would be most beneficial for what you are doing. And keep in mind a particular weight, because your rigs can get too heavy. And I'm gonna get a scale real quick and I'm gonna weigh the two and then we'll see the difference. All right, so we have the scale. Just gonna set this down. Don't tell my wife I hit the wall. I don't want to get in trouble again. All right. Yeah, last time I got in trouble, she wouldn't let me leave the house. She actually made me stay at home for 6 hours until I finished building an RC car. It's not much of a punishment, really. I actually enjoyed it. Don't tell her that. All right, so grams, let's see. I hope this scale can, oh boy. It's not touching the bottom. All right, perfect. So this one weighs in at 3,715 grams. So 3 kilos, just shy of 4 kilos. So over 3 kilos, almost 4 kilos. But let's see, well, I guess we can switch it to, let's see, pounds. What would that be in? All right, so we're gonna stick with grams. All right, so it was 3715. Let's look at this one. I hope I can balance it. Oh, nice. Oh, this is 3374. Interesting. So this one's actually lighter. All right. So again, you know, we're all scientists here. Somebody said that once. I didn't believe them. But the only thing I can think of is that most of my mass is just lower center of gravity. So most of that weight is actually going to my tires when I'm in an angle. So when I'm in an angle like this, most of my mass is probably going to my tires, which is also helping me with friction, because friction, you take the coefficient of friction and also the force of gravity. So the weight of the vehicle has to do with it. That's probably why I was able to grab onto the towel, or the tires were able to grip. Versus this one, a lot of its weight is probably suspended, so it's not directly on the wheels. This weight is probably taking it off the tires. That's probably why this one couldn't grip. Anyway, the main point is, before you start spending a lot of money on brass parts and adding things, try to think about, where do you want the weight? Where is it that you want that mass? And the other thing too, invest in small batteries, small light batteries. That being said, thank you very much for watching Telecomando RC. I think we all learned something new. I actually learned something that I wasn't expecting, which was the mass of my vehicle. Unless the scale is wrong, which is possible. I'm gonna blame the scale because I'm always right. Unless I'm talking to my wife, but that's a different story. Don't tell her I said that. She's awesome. She's the one filming, so I have to say it. But anyway, thank you for watching Telecomando RC, and we'll see you on the next one.